All right, listen up, fellow defenders, security practitioners, and network admins. Welcome to this explainer. I'm stepping straight into the Code Ninja protocol today because we have a high-urgency security advisory on our hands. Literally, a single manipulated payload is all it takes right now for an unauthenticated remote attacker to completely bypass your Check Point VPN and just waltz directly into your internal network. We're facing a severe, actively exploited threat to perimeter security here. So I've structured this advisory to give you exactly the intelligence you need to lock down your gates. Let's dive right in. 9.3. I want you to let that number sink in for a second. That's the CVSS 3.1 base score CISA ATP just assigned to this, making it a critical vulnerability. You know, this isn't just some generic perimeter bug. This is an absolute worst-case scenario authentication bypass. We're talking about CVE 2026-5751, a flaw that completely compromises the integrity of your remote access architecture. And the immediate danger? Yeah, it's very real. This isn't just a theoretical exercise sitting in a research lab somewhere. The financially motivated Qilin Ransomware group is actively sitting on the perimeter as we speak, exploiting this exact flaw to gain initial access to corporate networks all over the globe. They've already targeted a few dozen organizations. We literally have to move faster than they do. Now, the zero-day window on this one is deeply concerning. The earliest known in-the-wild exploitation by Qilin dates all the way back to May 7th, 2026. And it wasn't until a full month later, on June 8th, that Check Point publicly disclosed the vulnerability, dropped a patch, and CISA added it to their known exploited vulnerabilities catalog. That triggered a strict federal remediation deadline of June 11th. What does that mean for you? Well, if you haven't acted yet, you're absolutely operating on borrowed time. So, our operational objective for today is singular and crystal clear. You have got to force a vendor patch across your entire architecture or execute emergency mitigation immediately. We're pivoting right now from passive intelligence gathering to active perimeter defense. Moving into phase 2, let's do a quick comms check. First things first, step 1. I need you to subscribe to @cybertech79 and make sure those notifications are turned on. I'm framing this as a strict security necessity, guys. This is your real-time intelligence feed as this situation rapidly evolves. Step 2, hit the like button on this explainer. And hey, this isn't just about engagement. Consider this your formal ACK, your acknowledgement that you've received this critical intel. All right, comms link is established. Okay, phase 3, the deep dive. Let's unpack the actual protocol here. So what exactly is CVE 2026-50751? Basically, it's a massive logic flow weakness hiding inside the depreciated IK version 1 key exchange. Because these legacy remote access code paths were left exposed, an unauthenticated remote attacker can completely bypass user authentication. They can establish a remote access VPN connection without ever providing a valid password. It's kind of wild when you think about it. And the blast radius? It's vast. We're talking remote access VPN and mobile access, or SSL VPN, across firmware branches R80.20x all the way through R82.10. That includes both end-of-support branches and fully supported ones. It impacts Quantum Spark firewalls and security gateway systems. And it doesn't even matter if they're physical appliances sitting in your server rack or cloud-hosted instances. Let's get into the weeds with the technical payload mechanics. How is Qilin actually pulling this off? Well, the attacker targets the VPNExtFeatures vendor ID payload. This trick allows them to write client-controlled flags directly to the authentication gate. All they actually have to do is set bit 0x4 in the trailing bytes. The only real prerequisites here are having a valid username and knowing the ICA organization string from the gateway's public certificate. Once they've got that, they can fire this exploit over UDP ports 500 and 4500 or even TCP 443 in visitor mode. And here's where the magic or the nightmare happens. By simply setting that tiny OX4 bit, the attacker entirely bypasses the verify_pure_auth function. The system's signature verification is just completely neutralized. This allows the attacker to present self-signed certificates and basically walk right through the front door unchallenged. Now, this is absolutely crucial. There's a major distinction here because your exposure is highly dependent on your specific configuration. If you're running an exposed configuration, meaning IKV1 is still enabled for remote access, legacy clients are accepted, and machine certs aren't mandatory, you are a prime target. On the flip side, a hardened configuration enforces IKV2 only and makes machine certificates absolutely mandatory. So it's not just about what software version you're running, it's heavily about how you've actually built and locked your gates. All right, moving on to the patch, our emergency mitigation protocol. Grab your notepads. Here is your absolute priority right now. You need to apply Check Point hotfixes SK185033 or SK185035 across all your gateways. And yes, that includes high availability members and standby nodes. Now, if instant patching is literally impossible for you right now, you have to shrink that attack surface immediately. Disable the IKv1 protocol, drop legacy remote access client support entirely, turn on mandatory machine certificate authentication, and finally, use a tool like Quali's QID 387569 to validate your exposure. Because look, a fix isn't real until it's verified. So the gate is patched. We're good, right? Well, actually, scratch that. The mission isn't over. We have to shift our focus from patching straight into incident response and ask ourselves a really uncomfortable question. How do we detect if Qilin is already inside the house? Remember, they've been actively exploiting this since May 7th. For your threat hunting workflow, the absolute clearest early signal of a breach is finding a valid-looking VPN session that no real user actually initiated. You need to look for successful IKv1 or legacy sessions that just have no matching valid authentication flow. And please, don't just stop at the VPN alert. You've got to correlate that data with process, network, and identity anomalies. Trace any internal follow-on activity that looks like it's moving toward your high-value systems. Finally, Phase 4, ethics and sign-off. In this industry, users need to know the facts to protect their systems. That's why we practice coordinated vulnerability disclosure. You now have the timeline, the deep technical payload details, and the exact mitigation protocol. Go execute the patch, hunt down those anomalies, and lock your perimeters down tight. But before you log off today, I want to leave you with a thought. What other deprecated legacy protocols are sitting quietly on your perimeter right now, just waiting to become tomorrow's zero-day nightmare? Stay secure out there.